You found yourself on another episode of Locked On Bulls. Cody Williams, somebody who is projected to fall to the Chicago Bulls. Me and Pat are going to look at his draft profile, go in detail on Cody Williams, the pluses and negatives of the Bulls potentially drafting him. What we're going to talk about is, are there any players in the second round worth the Bulls trying to get into that second round for? And then lastly, has Billy Donovan set up himself for his exit strategy? We're going into all that and more right after this.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every single day. That's Pat the Designer, host and creator of the Windy City Breeze, and host of the Chicago Bears podcast over at ESPN 1000. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central and Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcasts, because they're multiple. With that said, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Pat, one of the guys that a lot of initially, I think like kind of earlier in the offseason, Cody Williams was kind of projected to go top 4, top 6. Yeah. A lot of mocks are starting to have Cody Williams potentially falling there to the Chicago Bulls. I mean, you have talked about him a little bit, right? But I wanted to go in detail here on this episode. First off, how do you feel about Cody Williams overall as a player?
I mean, I like Cody Williams. I think he's a really good scorer. I think he gets to the basket well. I think that the three-point shooting is a little bit overblown, though. That is the one part about his game where, not to say that he can't do more if he were to do more, right? But we talked about a little bit of how Dalton Connect comes out and, you know, he's shooting 6 threes in a game, so you know that he can go out there and knock down, 4 for 6 or 6 for 8, whatever it is, when he gets hot, right? The one thing about Cody Williams for me is not a lot of three-point shootings in the game logs. You look at the percentages looks great, right? This is a guy that goes out there, shoots it highly efficient, but it feels very early P. Will-ish in the sense of P. Will was sitting there shooting, 45% from the three-point line, and then you look at the box score and you go, well, yeah, he shot 1 for 3. It makes you feel a little better when the percentages get there at the end of the day. And so that's my only concern with Cody Williams. Can it expand out? I think he's got a really good shot. An interesting form, nothing crazy, but I think it still translates to the NBA level. Defensively, he's a scorer. Yeah, I mean, I feel better about him as a scorer than I do on the other end. You know what's weird? I'll say this, and it's not an apples to apples comparison by any means. Mm-hmm. But if the Bulls were to draft Cody Williams, it would be like, we hope that one day you become DeMar DeRozan. That's kind of how Cody Williams feels to me.
Well, I do think that Cody Williams has more defensive potential than the DeMar DeRozan, but the thing that hardest about doing this draft prospect things, you try to look for the positive, right? So you'll say, hey, he has this wingspan, he's strong, these type of things, he should be able to turn into an adequate defender. The problem is he hasn't yet, right? So like, he's a 3-and-D player right now.
We weren't evaluating drafts when DeMar came out. I'm sure somebody probably was like, the potential of this guy defensively.
Oh my God, bro. Like, could you imagine if you were one of the draft experts and said the potential of DeMar DeRozan defensively, and now 14 years later, you're just like,
hey, listen, yeah. You just Mel Kiper that mug. You just act like it didn't happen. That you didn't say it. If who's the quarterback? He said, if he's not good, I'll stop evaluating draft prospects. Came out same year as Peyton Manning. I want to say I can't remember his name. He was not good though. He was trash. He was pure garbage. Ryan Leaf. Yeah. Ryan Leaf isn't good. I'll quit my job. He did not quit. You just move on.
Here we are 20 years later. But the thing with Cody Williams is that people call him like this potential 3-and-D player. He has not shot the 3 ball overly effectively. He's not been great defensively. He's active defensively, which I got to give credit for. But he's still only 19 years old. So 19. I don't want to crap on his overall potential. But to me, it's just like, if a player is going to be somebody who you hang their hat on their defense, typically you see some of that early on. Jimmy Butler, you knew if nothing else, he was going to defend, right? Like, he became the Carmelo Anthony stopper in year 2, right? Because he didn't play at all year 1. Shout out to Tom Thibodeau. So I like Cody Williams, and the upside of the guy if he is there at number 11, I wouldn't be mad if the Bulls do draft him. But to me, and I don't know if people are going to agree with this or not, if you draft Cody Williams, you got to trade one of Patrick Williams, Julian Phillips, or Dalen Terry. You don't need 4 players like that. Like they all project to have different streaks per se, but like Cody Williams to me is like a merger of Patrick Williams and Dalen Terry. He has the passing of Dalen Terry. He gets out and run like Dalen Terry. He has the size of Patrick Williams, but not the shooting yet. I don't see. Let me not say that because this is AK, and he could absolutely sell us and be like, "See what we're gonna do. You're gonna have Julian. You're gonna have Patrick Williams and Cody Williams as your 3 and your 4. We're gonna have tons of length. Captain Carney lineup is here. So
fingertips touch it, baby.
Just the
no,
tip.
I just is that crazy? Is that crazy? Fingertips touch? I said fingertips. But no, I think here's the thing, right? Like I wouldn't be mad if you had a Cody Williams in this lineup. Dalen Terry didn't play enough for me to say he's affecting how Cody Williams is in the lineup, right? Like he gets minutes at times, but then there's stretches where he just doesn't. So clearly there's a lack of belief in Dalen Terry long-term with the Chicago Bulls, at least from Billy Donovan. I don't know if that goes all the way up the ladder or not, but at least from Billy Donovan, anytime there's a better option than Dalen Terry, he's going to put him out there, right? But I think what would be interesting is, do you put these guys into different roles that fits them best? I would love to see a Cody Williams, Patrick Williams lineup if these guys were living up to the players that we expected them to be. Now, Cody Williams comes in, you sit there and say, okay, you have to expand on your shooting. You have to become a shooter. He shoots, listen, 2 for 3 is nothing to knock, right? That's 2 big threes that could change a game. 2 for 3, I'm not knocking that, but we talk about him like he's Dalton Connect putting up 6 of them a game and putting up 8 of them a game and knocking down 6. You know what I mean? So you got to expand your 3-point game. You have to just take more of them. Not to say you can't shoot the 3 from that range, but you need to take more of them. If you focused on Cody Williams becoming more of a scorer and you focus on Patrick Williams maybe taking over, hopefully finally figuring out kind of that push shot, attacking more in the mid-range where he's got that 2-dribble pull-up that actually works a little bit nicely, attacking defensively, being a little bit of, kind of how he is at the 3-point line, that's not a bad thing. The problem is we don't know if Patrick Williams can be that, and we don't know if the Bulls can develop Cody Williams into that player because we ain't seen him do it with the dude that's the number 4 overall pick.
Well, I mean, luckily, we do have 2 new coaches coming in that have been really good about development. So maybe that's
everybody that walks in this building becomes one of us. It doesn't matter. Troy Craig was
the moment you cross the threshold of the United Center, you are one of us.
Troy Craig was taking 8 threes a game. That man went down to 2.5. No, he wasn't taking 8. What was he taking?
I was about to say, come on,
5, right? Last year or year before last. It was higher. It was like we were like this mud, like pulling that mud. He was in Phoenix.
Yeah, I don't think he was taking. Was he taking that many threes?
I thought Troy Craig was like he upped his 3-point. I know he upped his percentage, but I thought he upped his amount by a lot as well. And then like he got to the Bulls and it was like, no, back to normal.
The curse of the Bulls, bro.
The curse of being a Bull, man. It is what it is. I'll say this though: would you be upset? And I think this is
he took 3.5. He only took basically 0.6 less with the Bulls than what he did with Phoenix.
Hey, man, 0.6. No, hey, that's the averages again. You know what I'm saying? He took 6 in one game, took 1 in the next. No, I'm just playing. I'll ask this, and I think there's a good way to kind of ask it with all of these players in this draft because this is interesting. If Cody Williams is on the board and the Bulls pick comes up and they let him go past, would you be upset?
Not initially. Depends on who they pick, and then I mean, like with most drafts, it's the story of how it's told long term. I mean, could we have a inverse situation where we took Dalen Terry when we know we needed a center? If we took an actual center and passed up on a wing and Cody Williams, it's like, okay, perfectly balanced as all things should be. Shout out to Thanos.
Hey, and where'd it bring you? Right back to
right back to me. But yeah, overall, like I like Cody Williams as a prospect. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not going to be mad if you go best player. But where the Bulls are right now, I can't be mad if they go best player available. I think that there are some best players available also at the position of need that we have. But if you take a player that you truly feel has the superstar potential, they just better damn well work out. That's it.
Yeah. Well, it has not worked out for us in the past. Tyrese Halliburton is still in the playoffs.
That's even though he has played like it's been about 60% cheeks that he's played so far in this playoffs.
I mean, he's also been probably 50% healthy.
That's true too. Very true. Very true. All right, next we're going to be talking about
50% health. That's not bad.
We're going to be talking about players that we like in the second round. Before we get into that, though, I want to talk to you guys about one of our sponsors, and that is FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make every playoff shot count. Pat, really good conference finals coming in right now. Who you betting on in the West?
Woo! Give me Anthony Edwards, bro. I mean, listen, this is Locked On Bulls. We might as well bet on his son.
There you go. There you go. So if you guys bet on Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals, I think that's going to be a fun series. Again, visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make every
promo code MJ on it.
And make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. All right, Pat. Last season in the draft, the Bulls had no second round picks. We had no picks at all. As a matter of fact, the Bulls end up trading into the second round and nab Julian Phillips, who I think we all kind of like with Julian. We just need to see more, right? We need to see how he's going to progress and develop. Is there anybody in the second round of this draft, Pat, that if the Bulls were to buy a second round pick, or maybe if they were to make a smaller trade and get a second round pick back and something like that, is there anybody that stands out to you that you like in this draft?
You know what? It's such a weird draft because I feel like you can look at all of these guys, right, realistically and say, I mean, I could see him being like a first rounder because of how weird this draft is, but also he's a second rounder. And the guy that catches my eye kind of like that is Bronny James. No, I kid.
You almost gave me a heart attack there.
I mean, hold on. Let's be real. You wouldn't take Bronny James with a second round pick?
No.
Like if you you're not giving him a second rounder, bro?
No.
It's so straight face. Bronny gets no love. Is this James hate, or you just believe in Bronny NBA ability that little?
Yeah, I just don't believe in Bronny's NBA ability. It has nothing to do with LeBron hate. It's just I look at Bronny James and I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm good, man.
Oh, well, the guy that I look at, realistically speaking, he upped his minutes a little bit last season. I thought he played pretty well out of UCLA. Adam Bona, I thought that he was the wild last name, by the way. I thought that crazy. He was
crazy.
Hey, now they do make all
have fun with that.
They oh my God. Can you imagine? We draft him and we're playing the Raptors?
That would be crazy. That's crazy.
There it is. Took him a second.
Yeah, it took a minute.
No, I thought that he was a very interesting player. A little up and down, but did a pretty good job as a scoring big. He's slated right now to kind of go mid-second round, around that 40 to 49 range. 12 points a game last year, 1.8 blocks per game. He is a pure inside scorer, but I thought he showed really good mobility, 6'10", 245 pounds. So not a frail build, good attack around the rim. I love the way that he shows his effort. I love his athleticism. I think he brings defensive versatility. He's a guy that probably could play 3 through 5. You don't want him spending a ton of time on the 3. And surprisingly enough, I think that if you were to think of a player in the modern league, and hopefully he's healthier than this player, but when I watch his game, I almost get like a more agile Robert Williams. And so he would be somebody that I would be willing to kind of take a second and look at in the second round, because I think that if you can now a lot of his offensive game is pick and roll based, so you'd have to have him thrive with Kobe White or Al DeSumo, something like that. But if you can have a guy who's around the rim, blocking shots, able to finish around the rim, and can do it at a high percentage, I'm not mad at taking that in the second round. And I mean, y'all know I really like Adama Sanago's game, but it's going to be tough for him to crack a starting lineup for the Chicago Bulls. And I think that if you're going to take a chance on somebody, this is a young man that could crack a starting lineup at some point.
There are 2 players specifically in the second round that are projected to go to the second round that stand out to me the most. One is Trenton Flowers. I don't know how much of his tape you've gotten. 6'8", 180 pounds, small forward, power forward kind of combination there. Extremely raw. That's the thing here. But again, in the second round, I'm not mad making upside bets. He runs the floor good, has some point forward type potential in that as well. Also, solid enough 3-point shooter, even with contested 3 points as well. I like that also. He doesn't shoot well off the dribble, so he doesn't create his own shot, but kind of one of those players that can just come off a bunch of screens and hit a bunch of shots for you. I really do like it. One of the concerns with him, though, is that his finishing around the rim, he has a quick first step and ability to get to the rim, but he makes under 50% of his layup attempts. So it's like, all right, $1 million move with a $5 finish. So like that's a little concern. We have seen concerns over Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White finishing at the rim sometimes, though. So maybe you feel like you can develop that out of him. Only 19 years old, extremely young. So if you go upside in the second round, I like him a whole hell of a lot. Trenton Flowers is somebody who's drawn comparisons to like a Kelly Oubre Jr. with a higher defensive ceiling than Oubre. So that's why he stands out to me. And then another one is PJ Hall, the power forward out of Clemson.
Yeah.
Just a guy who just understands his role. And he can score a little bit. He can block some shots. Pretty athletic. He's drawn comparisons to a slightly less athletic Blake Griffin. If you can get that in the second round, I'll take that.
Which version of Blake, though? Because young Blake was just all athleticism.
Prime. They said prime.
Okay,
prime.
All right. I was going to say. I'm like, young Blake was pure athleticism. Like, I don't know if I want I don't want a less athletic version of a purely athletic player.
But see, he has that ability to stretch the floor. He can play small ball 5 as well. He passes decently enough. I'm not going to say you're going to run him as like a true point forward or anything like that. But I do think that you can draft him. And he can be a guy that's probably your first power forward off the bench with that type of potential. So it just depends on the lineups and matchups and things like that. But I really like PJ Hall from watching this tape.
What year are both of those guys?
PJ Hall, I believe, is a center. He's a senior. And then
senior.
And then
that's kind of what I was looking. Yeah, that's kind of what I was looking at too with it. Like another guy I had eyed up was Dylan Jones. And he's just a little bit older. Now, listen, you're not sitting here watching. You got to be in the trenches like me and Haize for Dylan Jones tape. Yeah, I mean he's from Weber State. If you pulled up Dylan Jones, shout out to you. You're welcome to the trenches. Welcome down here.
Yeah.
But to me, I see a guy who, I mean, powerful young man. He's only 6'6", but how he attacks on both ends of the floor, 6'6", 235. So remember, the Adam Bona, who I brought up, 245. He's 10 pounds less and 4 inches shorter. But great power, good strength. I thought that, he shows a tenacity defensively that the Bulls are kind of lacking a little bit at times, outside of a guy like Alex Caruso, but he also brings the weight along with that. He's a solid rebounder. I would say one, of course, he played in the league. I believe he's a senior this year, so he knows his game. He's improved his game every season. He's been a guy who went from 10 points a game all the way up to 20 points a game by the end of his college career. And to me, when I look at him, of course, I'm in my mind, I'm going with the highest upside I can on all these players because you're like, maybe you find a gem here. Dog, he reminds me of like almost like a worse passing Draymond Green, which it sounds crazy, but like the defensive intensity. He's like, what's the term they use? Like, dang it, like a junkyard dog almost. Okay. Anything what Javon Carter was supposed to be, but 6'6". You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the vibe that I get from him when I watch his game. And he has an ability to score the basketball as well. So I think that, to me, when I look at his game, decent 3-point shooter, shot at 35% his second year, shot at 32% his senior year. He's been kind of up and down in that area, but very, very efficient. And as a dude who maybe a little Jimmy Butler to his game in the sense of he doesn't care if he's coming out or not.
Okay. I mean, listen, there are some players in this second round. I know people are kind of trained and been hearing a lot. Oh, this draft is weak. It's weak. No, the draft is weak as far as superstar talent. This is actually a pretty good draft to find you some really solid role players, especially in that second round. And so, if the Bulls were to trade
if we being real, in the first round too.
I mean, yeah. I mean, clearly, you expect that to be in the first round, though, right? At the minimum. Yeah. Is there, if you had to put a percentage as we get ready to wrap up this segment, Pat, what percentage would you give it that the Bulls do make a trade into the second round?
High. I'd say 75-80%.
Okay.
Just because, it's clearly AK's trying to rekindle the magic. Yeah, I mean, he's trying. He's a guy who found gold in the second round. So he's trying. Now, what I will say is this: he will probably pick none of the players that we said.
Now, question real quick before we leave here. We know that the lottery protected first round pick by the Portland Trailblazers, it conveys to 2 second round picks after 2028. Basically, if the Portland Trailblazers make the playoffs between now and 2028, we get that pick. The Portland Trailblazers have 2 second round picks in this draft. Would you be willing to say, here, you can take the first back, let's get your 2 seconds in this one without giving up any assets?
That's tough. That's tough because you
look at do you see the Trailblazers making the playoffs in the next 4 years with that roster?
I don't see the Trailblazers making the playoffs, but what would be tough is, and I think this is now, they're not going to fire anybody, but this to me is like a tough thing to look back on if you're a GM, and I think that's kind of how they all think on it. If you give them the first round pick for the 2 seconds, and that first round pick then becomes the player that they need to make the playoffs.
Well, the thing is, though, is that you gotta take the risk versus reward, because, like I said, I just don't see the pace the Trailblazers making the playoffs, so it's going to be 2 seconds anyway.
Yeah, but
so
I feel you, but how much we know how much players can change if you get the right player. If Scoop figures out his game, everything could change. But I think you also gotta look at it and say, how much gold are you finding in 2 seconds?
That's
like maybe you can, but I think if you end up getting 2 seconds 2 years from now and you're like, oh, well, we end up with 2 seconds versus you trade it away and they get a first rounder out of it and you get the 2 seconds, you kind of, like, to me, you're gambling on the maybe of finding one guy out of the 2 in the second round versus getting that one guy in the first if they make the playoffs. Both are a gamble. I guess
both a gamble. Yeah.
As you talk through it, it's like both are a gamble, but I'd rather gamble on a basketball player getting good than gamble on like them picking the right player, I guess.
I mean, maybe I said they're kind of doing both things, but I get what you're saying.
Let's get into this final topic, man. But before we do, we got to talk about this Billy Donovan exit strategy. But before we do, which is an interesting topic. I don't know where that was floated from. We got to tell you guys all about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action. While you watch your favorite sports and players, you just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. March is over, but the biggest month in oh, nope, I did what you did. Get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks right now as you and the world's best players take on the game at an entirely new level during basketball's postseason. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey, college basketball entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy app. All you got to do right now is download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That is Locked On NBA for a first time deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
All right, Pat. Before we go today, we got one last topic to get into, man. With the coaching hires that the Bulls have made, 2 veteran coaches who've done this for years and decades, a former head coach in Wes Unseld Jr. Dan Craig has been a former head coach as well, but that was for the G League. Take that for what you will. The Bulls still do have one spot left on their coaching staff. But the question that we want to answer here is that, do you think the Bulls, Billy Donovan, whoever, is setting up for an exit strategy for Billy Donovan?
I think that there's a possibility of this. We've talked about this many a times, and now it's kind of making its way through, Bulls social media and stuff like that.
Yeah, but make sure y'all quote us on that too, by the way.
Whoa, we're getting quoted out here. Hey, we do be getting quoted low key. We just don't be seeing it all the time.
Yeah.
Every night, the worst part about this is total side. The worst part about trying to figure out topics during the offseason for the Bulls, when you go to a topic and you're like, man, this sounds like a good topic, but then you realize it's your video and your quote in the topic because we already talked about it.
Shout out to Sports Illustrated. They quote us a lot over there at SI, bro. Like,
shout out to SI. SI be like, I love the article too. It'd be like, oh, well, there's some thought out there that this could happen. And you know who said it? These guys. And it's just a link to our video. So shout out to that. We'll take whatever.
You know what? And that is what they do. Like, they go through their whole thought process. And then at the very end of the article, this was floated out by Haize and Pat the Designer over the Locked On Bulls. Put that at the beginning of the article. Give us our shine, bro. But, it is what it is.
I want the video link at the top. No, but I'll say this. To me, when you look at a guy like Billy Donovan and kind of what he's been brought into here, I've said this for a while now. It feels like he's just kind of going through the coaching motions. And we've seen these kind of things happen before when guys have already been told, hey, there's a little bit of a promotion in this for you if you stick it out through the tough years, get us to a good point, and we'd love to see you move up in this front office. We've seen that from a bunch of guys. If I'm not mistaken, John Paxson did that as well. He was on a coaching staff for the Chicago Bulls, and then ended up getting promoted through past the coaching into the front office and worked his way up there as well. So, this is not something that is uncommon with the Bulls. The Bulls love to build within. It's something that Jerry Reinsdorf has done throughout his entire career as an owner. Excuse me. And so I think that there's a really good chance that this could be the case, especially when you kind of look at how secretive they kept Billy Donovan's extension, how hush-hush they kept a lot of the stuff around him, because we're just going to convert that into whatever the contract is to make him a GM or make him he'd be basically the GM. And I think it lines up perfectly because of everything that we continue to hear around Mark Eversley, who again this offseason is taking phone calls and taking interviews for other GM spots.
Yeah.
Or other president of basketball spots, I should say.
Yeah. So I mean, it's if it was, I know people get triggered by hearing that, and I just think, like, at the end of the day, are we saying that that's what we want to see happen? No, but I think we understand that the writing could be on the wall, and that is something that could happen. Like I said, the moment that Billy Donovan said he talks to Jerry every day, I was like, oh yeah, this dude ain't going nowhere no time soon.
I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't be opposed to Billy in the front office. I don't know why. Yeah. I feel like Billy's not a bad evaluator of talent. I feel like he struggles at the development part,
the execution of it, so to say. Yeah.
Because let's be real, Patrick Williams' skill set makes sense.
Yeah,
6'8", fast, can get up and down the court, can knock down threes. Like, it all makes sense, but do we feel like he's being utilized the right way? There's some question marks.
I mean, look at Derrick Jones Jr. in the Mavs, for example.
DJJ was he was kind of that DJJ here when we let him play.
I mean, the utilization, though. The fact is he averaged 14 minutes here, and he's averaging over 20 minutes there, and he's killing it right now, right?
Well, the fact that, remember, Billy didn't play him for basically...
It's like 25 games,
an entire quarter of a season, and then literally he put him in, and DJJ instantly put
right away
like 20 and like 10, and we're like, "What has he been hurt? Like, where's this been? What's going on here?" No, he didn't play for an entire. He played the second half of that game. He didn't play for an entire game, and then we put him in the play-in game, didn't we? And like the second half or like the fourth quarter only. And he instantly cooked, made a great defensive stop, got the game-saving block. I think this is against Atlanta, and got like a layup on the other end to seal the deal. And we were like, why is he not playing this guy? What's going on here?
Billy Bubblegum Donovan, bro.
Billy though. Follow us on everything at Locked On Bulls. You can follow me on everything at Pat the Designer. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and showing love, and watch out for that gum.
You guys can follow me at CEO Haize. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Bulls. We are free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as YouTube. For Pat the Designer, I'm Haize. It's been Locked On Bulls, y'all. And I'm on my deathbed, y'all. I made it through this episode dying. I love you guys, y'all. Peace.
Haize feeling like that alien in Men in Black 2 when Buddy's face popped open.
That's crazy.
That may sound crazy with no context.